Before we get started, it should have to be said, but this is a disgusting and terrible moment that we're going through right now. There's no reason that we should ever be seeing people going out and committing violent acts against those for expressing their views and for speaking what they believe. And we are taping this on September 11th itself, a really grim and tragic day. And here we are talking about another horrible violent act. And this is a really difficult one. Oliver, we were working yesterday when this terrible event occurred, and both of us, I recall, reacted in just absolute shock that this could possibly be happening.
Yeah, I mean, it is shocking. I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to process this, and I couldn't believe it at first. I think that was probably a natural reaction amongst a lot of people. But it is utterly shocking, and obviously Charlie Kirk had a lot of fans and a lot of critics, and he was a polarizing figure in this country. But nothing excuses any sort of violence. Nevertheless, a really heinous act like this. And I think it's obviously larger than Kirk. It gets to who we are as Americans. And an attack like that is really an attack on who we are as a people. And are we allowed to argue and advocate for whatever in this country? I mean, that's what's always made America great, is you can have whatever view and you can go outside and you can say it because that is protected by the First Amendment. That is a foundational principle of this country. And to see anyone attacked for that is abhorrent and unacceptable. And I think that should be the really, that at least seems to be something, even in this polarized moment, that we can all agree on, broadly speaking, that this was intolerable and should never happen.
We are taping this roughly 24 hours after the shooting. There is still not a suspect that has been identified or taken into custody. We don't know the motivations. To an extent, they almost don't matter. The result is still the same. This horrible taking of life. Charlie Kirk was only 31 years old. The immediate reaction, though, I think besides the shock and the horror of this moment, this sort of like hard to believe that this is happening, let alone captured on video for all to quickly consume. For the most part, the reaction was really swift condemnation from those in the mainstream press, from many of our leaders, that this is totally unacceptable. We saw a number of high-profile journalists and media commentators really condemn this sort of turn into political violence, regardless of where they sit on the political spectrum. And I think that was a very good, a very important thing to be said right now, which is that, if many are going to portray this as, a left on right attack, it's really important right now to hear those in that space say that this is completely unacceptable. We can never see this. We saw governors from states that had nothing to do with this come out and say, this has to stop. We can't live like this. And anchors, Mehdi Hassan being one of them, come out and say, I disagreed with Charlie Kirk on a lot of issues, right? I'd be shocked if there was anything they actually saw eye to eye on, but swiftly come out and say, but this can never happen. We cannot do this to each other.
Yeah, and it was more, I mean, it's not like Mehdi you just disagreed with Charlie Kirk, right? I mean, they clashed quite a bit. I mean, I actually wrote his quote down. He said on social media yesterday, Mehdi said, he wrote, "Charlie Kirk called me a lunatic and a prostitute and demanded I be deported. Nothing justifies killing him or robbing his kids of their dad. We don't know the identity or motive of the shooter, but murder can never be the response to political disagreements." And I think that was really a model almost on how people should respond to something like this. I think then on social media, which always brings out the worst of us. There were, a number of inappropriate and unacceptable comments, but what you saw from Mehdi was really, I think, what people with large platforms and who are progressive media stars, how they responded, and same with the news media figures, journalists. This isn't a left or right issue, right? Everyone is biased against political violence, and so you saw them yesterday very forthrightly say this cannot happen and this is unacceptable, and call it for what it is. This is a horrific, heinous act of violence that is meant to chill speech in this country. And that's just simply not who we are as Americans. We are a country that tolerates and celebrates the fact that you can say what you think, and that is okay. And now we've had discussions on the show about like how social media platforms, whether there are rules on those for what can be said and what should maybe not be allowed to be said. But he was on a college campus, right? And that's typically where views of all sorts are proclaimed and debated. And the fact that this would occur on a college campus, it was a sunny day, thousands of students had come out to see this event, and that someone would end it and end his life like this and rob his kids of their father is just beyond the pale. I mean, I don't think we have the words to describe this.
Yeah, and yet the unfortunate reality is that this event occurred in 2025, where it immediately becomes this online fodder. It becomes part of the already fractured and hyper-partisan environment.
And increasingly violent environment, right? There was the Paul Pelosi attack not too long ago, where a madman went and harmed him. There was obviously the attempt on Donald Trump's life that we all saw last summer. There was the shooting by of the United Healthcare CEO in New York City. There was the person who set fire to Governor Josh Shapiro's residence and was later charged with attempted murder. There were the really grim assassinations in Minnesota of Democratic officials. And now this. And it is, becoming disturbing how regular these acts of political violence are becoming in this country. I mean, we've been growing numb to, I think, gun violence in general and mass shootings, and it almost feels like we're reaching the point where these unacceptable crimes are becoming regular.
Yeah, certainly gun violence has become normalized, right? How many school shootings have we covered? In fact, yesterday, while we were reporting on this situation, and Charlie Kirk's whether he would survive or not yesterday was still unknown for at least a few hours. And at the same time, reports were coming in of a school shooting in Colorado, the next state over. And I think that it just speaks to, no, not the school shooting where Charlie Kirk was involved, the other school shooting where high school kids were being shot. I think really just speaks to how normalized this violence and gun violence specifically has become. And but at the same time, it is hard to ignore that immediately after the shooting, the blame game launched. And those on the right, those who were identify as friends or allies of Charlie Kirk, who believed strongly in his message, the MAGA media agenda in general, who really adhered to Donald Trump's ideology, immediately came out and pointed the finger at the left. We saw a whole host of people, Elon Musk, who obviously owns the X platform, where many people were consuming information about this, atrocity, saying that the left is evil and the party of murder, really intentionally stirring this up. really sort of doing the opposite. Laura Loomer declared that the left are terrorists. Donald Trump then released a statement last night blaming this on the radical left, saying that they have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric, he said, is directly responsible for the terrorism that we are seeing in the country today. This isn't, since we're here on 9/11 recording this episode, this isn't one of those moments where the country from its top leadership is coming together to turn the temperature down. It is one where we are seeing really immediately a pointing of the finger at others within the country, even right now, as we know nothing about who did this, why they did it, what their connection, if anything, is to Kirk. And I think that is really telling that the hatred that has been stirred up among many people right now, I worry that we're not seeing that kind of that sort of turning things down a notch after a person was just killed.
Yeah, well, you are on the left, right? I mean, I think on the left and in mainstream media, that's exactly what you're saying. And that's the responsible thing to do. And it stands in contrast to what you're saying is happening in MAGA media and right-wing media, which, importantly, this moment should be turning the temperature down. They should be saying cooler heads need to prevail here. This is unacceptable. They should link arms. Someone should link arms with Mehdi Hassan. Instead of Jesse Waters going on air and saying they are at war with us, whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us, and what are we going to do about it? It would be almost nice if he linked arms with someone like Mehdi and said, you know what, we agree on nothing, right? Like, we don't even like each other personally, but we do agree on this one thing that unifies us as Americans, which is that you do not ever, ever commit political acts of violence in this country. That is something we fundamentally agree on. And this country might be polarized, it might be fractured, but we cannot lose sight of that foundational principle. Unfortunately, that's, maybe in a yesteryear, that sort of bipartisanship or that sort of display of solidarity would have happened across the political spectrum, but you're not seeing that right now. Instead, you're seeing a lot of people with a lot of large audiences who have political power, like Laura Loomer has Donald Trump's ear, and she's calling for all sorts of things right now. You're seeing these people irresponsibly use their platforms, and they know it. I mean, I was watching Sean Hannity last night on the night of the shooting, and Clay Travis, the Outkick founder, was on, and he said, I want to read to you what he said, John, because he acknowledged that this would be the right thing to do, but then rejected doing it. He said, I am so angry, and I understand everybody out there says, well, we have to tamp down the anger. Then he goes on to say, I'm not willing to do that right now because I get angrier the more I think about this, Sean. They, no secret who they is in this sentence, put the wheels of motion for this in order. They did it, Sean. And the fact that, again, I mean, they know what they should be doing. They know what the right thing to do is here. And they're actively rejecting it. And instead, someone like Elon Musk, who commands a huge audience, tremendous political power, tremendous just power in general as a businessman, the leader, they are stirring the pot and they are raising the volume. They're turning it up. That's extremely worrisome because if anything, right now, their voices matter more than ever and they have the ability to do something good. And instead, you're saying this.
Yeah, I think it feels like a bit of a breaking point here where we have seen a continued fracturing of the media environment, people living in alternate timelines from one another, people who even live in the same household, people reading and consuming news from one place and the other. Charlie Kirk played a really key role in the delivery of this MAGA messaging. And the idea now that many of those who knew him or were close to him or who operate in that same echo chamber are now calling for vengeance, calling for blood, saying, you did this. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, his wife, Katie Miller, who has her own podcast, said that, you called us Nazis, you called us racist, you have blood on your hands, directly calling out, quote, liberals for doing this. And that, again, what is the audience supposed to make of that when they hear it, right? Like, they're just supposed to get stirred up into even more anger. And it's horrifying to see that in Kirk's death, it just becomes more content chum for people to quote RT and put online with your angry reaction to go get them. They did this to us. And I think it is a symptom of this larger cancer in the media ecosystem in this country, where you are influencers with large followings are incentivized to say the craziest, most radical thing because it will get more views, more clicks, more engagement, and therefore, in the way that a lot of these platforms are geared, more dollars. And I think that is unfortunate. An actual human being's life was lost in this, regardless of how you feel about the words that he would say, the political views that he held. But it is where we are right now, and I think we should really hope and press that our political leadership will help to tamp that down, to push for cooler heads to prevail here.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath though, because that's just does not seem to be the overriding theme that we're seeing. And I also think, John, it's important to point out that when, the reaction you're seeing from people like Mehdi on the left stands in such contrast to how the right has repeatedly responded in the wake of political violence. I just go back to when Paul Pelosi was attacked, and there were all sorts of conspiracy theories being fueled by people like Elon Musk. Remember that? He was fueling these conspiracy theories. In the wake of these tragic incidences, these two different media universes respond dramatically differently. And it's important to point out, particularly because there is a lot of anti-media sentiments being whipped up right now. That was actually an overriding theme of Sean Hannity's program, his 2-hour special program, the night that Kirk was murdered. He was playing clips of out of context clips of people in the media, frankly, just describing that Kirk was polarizing, which shouldn't be controversial. I think, he would probably acknowledge himself he was polarizing, and saying that the media was whipping up basically violent sentiments in this country. Sean Hannity knew exactly what he was doing. And instead of him playing, again, clips of people on the left and in mainstream media condemning this, that's what he chose to do. And they're stirring up an anti-media sentiment. So I think it's very important to point out that the vast majority of people in the media and the press and progressive media have condemned this. And that stands in firm contrast to how, frankly, Fox News has responded in the wake of other attacks, and how these right-wing media personalities have responded before. Thank you for watching Power Lines. For more analysis and insight, subscribe to our YouTube channel down below, like this video, and you can watch more of us right over here.